Hello YouTubers, this is Gold Standard Zizu924 coming at you with a special video for you guys today. So as you could read up at the title of the screen, this will be an introduction to my new set of videos, which I will dub the GSTV podcast. So the premise behind these sets of videos is to kind of do a weekly episodic TV review of certain TV shows I'll be discussing throughout this sort of chronology. So to kind of kick things off, I'm just going to be discussing on some of the TV shows that I'll be discussing in the title screen and even a bit in the description box as well, as you could read. So I'm just going to be talking about the superhero shows, most notably Arrow and The Flash. I'll talk a bit about Once Upon a Time and uh, the Splat block, which is basically the classic nostalgia Nickelodeon block from that shows a lot of some of their old archival stuff from back in the day, and perhaps my thoughts on Power Rangers Dino Charge thus far. So all that's going to be crammed into one video. So obviously I'll have a lot to discuss. So I'm gonna try and explain it as much as clear as possibly as I can. So how I'm gonna work this out, because this is probably gonna be a long video, is I'm gonna just kind of split this into separate audio files. So one audio file I'll probably talk about the splat and then maybe take a break. So just to kind of replenish my throat. So in case my throat gets really dry. So I'm probably gonna separate in the different audio clips and basically try to make sure that I'm not overdoing myself and try to kind of like I said, replenish my throat and maybe grab some water to kind of clear my throat. So so hopefully this is gonna pan out the best as I possibly can, and I just hope that this series of videos turns out to be successful. Um, yeah, so without further ado, I'm just gonna kind of talk about Nickelodeon's classic primetime block known as the Splat. So as far as the Splat is concerned, going into for a couple years, Nickelodeon has started to acknowledge some of their viewers that have grown up watching some of their past shows, especially some of the stuff that came out during the golden period of Nickelodeon, which during the eras of the All That's and the game shows and the Nicktoons like the Rugrats, the Ren and Stimpies, the Dougs, and Hey Arnold, so and so forth. Um, so definitely this, in recent years, you had Teen Nick, which would air some of the classic Nickelodeon shows, starting in 2011 with the 90s or All That. And it started off pretty fine at first. It got a lot of heavy advertising, heavy promotion. A lot of fans that grew up on some of these certain Nickelodeon shows from decades prior really got a chance to relive their childhood again. And then, July 2011 rolled around. People got excited. Especially the first couple months where they started to be rotating the schedule around. Even though there were some bumps along the road, like the block being held at midnight, especially when most people are asleep or they're kind of getting ready to go to work or ready to go to school, depending on their ages. But yeah, the 90s All That started off pretty good for a while, and then they had the U Pick stuff with Stick Stickly, where fans get to choose which shows that they would like to air every Friday night. It will always be like a random show. And then as time rolled on, Nickelodeon started to they just barely did anything new to the block. Like they just couldn't, like they hardly ever changed the schedule. They kept recycling the same promos over and over again. And on occasions they will also do like one of these special some of these special presentations, like at the time when they were celebrating the 20th anniversary of Snick, which was basically a Nickelodeon primetime block that they would showcase every Saturday night. And they even showed a couple of game shows from the Nick Gas days on on special occasions. Like they would show like Legends of the Hidden Temple. They would show Family Double Dare, And basically during the times when the Olympics were taking place, because they usually take place around like August every couple years. But other than that, the '90s Are All That block was pretty stagnant, in terms of some of the content that they were providing, and barely interacting with any of their viewers, and it just kind of got to the point where a lot of people, including myself, just got turned away from the block. And so, things started to be a little pretty stale over the years. And then, 2015 rolls around. We're pretty much around like towards the end of 2015, hard to believe. And now it's been announced that the Splat would replace the '90s All That block, and basically, retooling the classic Nickelodeon block that would go on from you know during the after darks, like 10 p.m. It would start rather than the midnight hours that uh, was presented with the '90s or all that, and they extended the hour by about 8 hours actually, and 4 hours technically for the first half, and the remaining 4 hours is basically the encore presentations. Something like they kind of took a formula out of Adult Swim on Cartoon Network. Um, yeah, so I mean, I actually, I actually a couple years ago, I always thought that the '90s All That block needed something, and I did a couple of fantasy schedules on how I would have quote unquote improved the block. And then I did the fantasy schedule for Teen Nick as an entire channel, especially with their classic Nick block, and basically changing the name of the name of the block, just how ridiculous and bland it was, and not being as specific because like you call yourself the '90s or all that, so I mean, shouldn't you be only? I thought you were only running like Nickelodeon shows only. I mean, you aired like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and even though it's technically a '90s show, it wasn't a show that was aired popular on Nickelodeon. It was on Fox Kids. Basically, I mean, Nickelodeon didn't create Power Rangers. They just bought the rights from them, and Saban purchased Power Rangers back from Disney. But and that was really, I think that was at the time where I just started scratching my head. It's like, well, what's the point of like why is this show on the '90s or that block when it wasn't a Nickelodeon show? So it kind of got some people confused. So yeah, so I really like the idea of rebranding the classic Nick block. I think that's one of the things that it needed. Um, and I'm actually uploading producing this video on a Tuesday, so anything could happen from here. Anything that could probably change here on out. So I was actually watching. The first day of the Splat, they actually were supposed to air the Adventures of Pete and Pete, and you would think they would actually finally Nickelodeon finally aired bought the ability to air the classic Pete and Pete show. Like the 30-minute half-hour episodes that they would have. But instead, what we got was a set of Pete and Pete shorts that they would do. Basically, the shorts that would air during commercial breaks, like before the Adventures of Pete and Pete became a full time TV show. So, like, they used to air like all these shorts during commercials and intermission time, and they would air those shorts, which was it was going pretty good at first, and then they just decided to cut away and start airing "You Can't Do That on Television," which was kind of very weird. Um, I'm not saying "You Can't Do That on Television" was weird. I mean, it was actually technically it was before my time, but I could understand the significance behind the show because it was definitely one of those uh, classic Nick shows that haven't really been aired in so many years. And that was actually another thing I also almost forgot when to my mind's all over the place, so I apologize. So what I was trying to say is that going into the Splat, they're finally airing certain programs that haven't been seen on TV in the past 15 to 20 years, and this was a golden opportunity for me to look back at some of these shows and whether these shows held up or shows that came before my time, and trying to start to get like a little understanding of why those shows were unique for its time. And I mean, yeah, you've seen a couple TV shows on like sites like YouTube and Netflix and some of the DVDs that maybe you probably purchased online, but a lot of it was really poor quality in terms of a lot of these shows weren't out on DVD. Some of them aren't, and it was kind of unfortunate for for several years. You know, yeah. So they're also airing Welcome Freshmen on the block. They're also airing, like I mentioned, you can't do that on television. So, I mean, it start with the Splat starting off on paper. It could be a pretty promising block. Hopefully, a step up from the '90s or all that. And then, it was just kind of weird, like how they did it. They just kind of stuck a middle finger to the viewers, at least to me, because I was so confused because they listed it at 10 p.m. So, I mean, instead they just aired like a full hour of You Can't Do That on Television. So I was very confused. Even though I did catch the two P and Pete shorts before they just suddenly cut away to another show. So it was just kind of a weird thing that they did. So it kind of led to me thinking that Nickelodeon did not find a way to re-air the half-hour P and Pete show that they used to air. I mean, I know they were known for using a lot of music during that time. I think the theme song with what was it, Hey Sandy by Polaris, which was basically the band that contributed to the theme song, and they even had a couple other songs that they performed in throughout some of the episodes in the show. But um, for years, P and Pete hadn't been seen on TV, and a lot of that might have to do with some of the copyright music that they had, and normally you have to pay royalty fees to use some of the commercialized mainstream music that they would play in the middle of a scene. But yeah, so P&P was definitely one of the few Nick shows that hasn't been reran a whole lot. I mean, they used to show reruns of it back in the day during the early years. I think it was on the end where they, in the early years where they, showed reruns of old Nick shows like that and the Secret World of Alex Mack. Um, they, for a while, the end used to show reruns of old Nick shows like All That and Keenan and Kel. I mean, some of those shows, I mean, they still get more airtime to this day. They're still talked about. But Pete, over the years, it has gotten the cult following, especially as time went on, despite the fact that the show had long since ended, and the people that grew up watching P&P are like in their, I want to like to estimate maybe somewhere in their late 20s, early 30s. Um, but yeah, it still hold a special place in a lot of those people's hearts. So I thought that was kind of a weird thing, the way they aired P&P, but not really air P&P, if you know what I mean. Like they only aired for like a few minutes. I mean, they only aired like the classic shorts that they used to do before they started to have their half-hour TV series. So hopefully that kind of gets settled, and I really hope Nick shows reruns of the half-hour show. But I mean, so far, regardless, the Splat's looking pretty promising. Hopefully, it doesn't go in the same realm as the predecessor to the '90s or all that. And that's one of the things I think a lot of people are kind of afraid of. Especially since a lot of people are kind of 50-50 on the direction that the block's been going through, and how they're afraid that they don't want to be let down again despite the heavy promotion. Because that was pretty much what the '90s All That did, like the first time around, and I guess people just are kind of fed up with it, and you have to rely on the internet, especially a lot of streaming services like YouTube and Netflix and Hulu, and I mean, not all these shows are on those streaming services, and some of them aren't even out on DVD, or at least not on complete sets. Like Ventures of P and Pete. I mean, they only air like 2 out of the 3 seasons, and Clarissa Explains It All. But you get what I mean. But hopefully the Splat, like I said, try to regain some fan interest in the classic Nickelodeon block, and hopefully they live up to its promise. So now that the Splat is out of the way, I also want to kind of discuss about some of the superhero shows I was going to mention in this video. And I just got done watching the second season premiere of The Flash, and overall, I really enjoyed this episode. It was very fun and somewhat action packed, although you've seen like a lot of basically the aftermath of the season one finale. So basically Ebar Thawne, who's the main villain that disguised himself as Harrison Wells, eventually Eddie committed suicide, and Ebar Thawne came from the future. So, being the descendant of Eddie, eventually he's wiped away from existence as a result of Eddie's death, and despite that, he ended up creating a wormhole that was created from one of his experiments just prior to his death. Um, yeah, so eventually, Barry goes out there and tries to close the wormhole, and eventually, he has trouble doing that. So Ronnie steps in and helps Barry, and sacrifices himself to save the city. And despite that, Barry starts to feel a bit of resentment and guilt. The 6 months have passed, and he's finally given the keys to the city. Since the Flash has been, it's been over a year since he's started going out there and stopping crime and basically protecting the city as much as possible. Especially with all the metahumans that have come by since the incident that happened at Star Labs, and things have been kind of the Flash has a pretty big effect on the Starling City, and why the city's still around to especially go in the second season. Yeah, so basically, they also Edge actually guest starred in this episode. He actually portrayed the Atom Smasher, and it was really cool to see him. I grew up watching him in WWE. Big wrestling fan. No, for those that are subscribed to my videos, you probably already know that I watch WWE. I've been watching it since I was a little kid. So I thought it was pretty cool to see him. Only downsides, I wish we kind of got to see a little more of him, but basically he was kind of there to kind of serve, to kind of advance the story. So in other words, he was kind of more or less somewhat of a plot device, which was kind of unfortunate in my opinion. But he did his job, and he didn't really have a lot of scenes in here and there. Um, I was kind of get a crack out of Cisco because he's normally the comic relief and always makes all these geek pop culture references, and making subtle references to Batman. Especially when um, they had that headlight that they had. I don't know what it's called, but like when you have like the bat signal, that you would see in Batman, like especially when there's trouble looming in Gotham. It was kind of like that, especially when they were trying to hunt down the Atom Smasher. But yeah, so like yeah, Cisco made like a subtle allusion to Batman, but obviously they can't make mention to him, just considering the fact that they have the Batman versus Superman movie coming out. So yeah, so they can't really mention, directly mention his name, despite the fact that he's also another superhero from the DC comics. But I thought it was kind of a pretty touching moment there. Um, and Caitlin's kind of trying to overcome grief ever since Ronnie passed away, and basically they got married, just towards the end of the first season, and basically their honeymoon kind of came to a screeching halt, I guess you could say at that. Um, yeah, so she's also kind of alienated herself a bit, kind of like Barry did to an extent, and eventually, both their problems all come together and basically start to work with some of the main characters again. Iris has kind of jumped in along the mix ever since she found out Barry's identity is the Flash. So now that Eddie's gone, Iris is starting to kind of join in on the gang and try to provide some more assistance. And even the new assistant, I can't remember his name. I think his name was Stein, but yeah. So he's basically kind of taken over Harrison Wells' spot, or at least from the looks of it. Um, yeah. And they even finally got Barry's dad out of out of prison once and for all. So season, the first episode of the second season was kind of used as, an epilogue to kind of tie up loose ends from the first season. Especially now that, you know, Harrison Wells is dead, and basically, confesses that, he was responsible for killing Barry's mother all those years ago. And yeah, so finally, Barry's dad's out of prison, and basically, despite the fact that that they're together once again, um, his dad insists Barry to kind of just basically that he doesn't really need him around all the time. That that Barry's matured, he's grown up, since he started becoming, since he's become a superhero, and basically, he has a family, and I thought it was kind of a good message. It's like, just because you're not biologically related doesn't mean you're, um, you get, family is such a broad term, first of all, and I think based on what we've seen, in the first season, with the chemistry with Barry, Caitlin, Cisco, Iris, and Joe, etc., etc. I thought it was actually a good message that you don't have to be blood related in order to consider yourself a part of a family, and I thought that was kind of the beauty of things, especially I think what Barry's father was trying to say, and even though that Barry's dad is kind of moving away from basically just leaving Central City, he could always contact him in case he ever needs any help. He just feels that uh, his son is ready. That he's basically he has a lot of friends. He's definitely matured. And developed over the year. Um, so yeah, overall, like I said, definitely a really good episode, and I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen throughout the second season. And Jerry Garrick showed up at the end, so that'll be interesting to see how that turns out, and the whole um, parallel universes. That's going to be a big theme throughout most of the second season. So definitely looking forward to that. And yeah, just definitely some bright future ahead for the Flash, and no pun intended. But I thought it was, like I said, a pretty good episode. Um, I think we'll see a lot of chemistry between Iris and Caitlin. Especially since their boyfriends have unfortunately passed away. So I think they're gonna try. We're gonna see a lot of character bonding between the two women in the show. So yeah, so definitely going to be a very interesting direction, as far as the second season is concerned. So overall, I really enjoyed that episode, and the only, even though the only downside was, just the villain just was kind of secondary, and I mean, because I really enjoyed Edge on this episode, but even though he didn't really appear a whole lot, and basically served the further end, but it is what it is, and like I said, definitely looking forward to the second season. So there's my brief thoughts on the second season premiere of The Flash. So now that The Flash is aside, I'm also going to be discussing about the fourth season premiere episode of Arrow, and overall, I gotta say, I really enjoyed this episode. We get to see Thea fighting crime just like her older brother, alongside with the main villain debut of Damien Dark. Um, definitely, I really like what I'm seeing so far, and just a very snarky type of villain that we've a stark contrast to the previous villains. But I like what I'm seeing so far. I don't want to kind of jump into conclusions just yet, since we're just kind of at the beginning stages. I'm still trying to get the hang of Diggle with that Magneto helmet. I remember watching those leaked photos that came out prior to the fourth season, and I was still very iffy at first. I think it's gonna take some time to get adjusted to. Um, yeah, so Oliver comes back. along with Felicity, and with the superhero upgrade costume that Cisco created, along with the Barry Allen splash suit. So, yeah, Cisco managed to make some upgrades also for Oliver's Green Arrow suit. So he's no longer the vigilantes, and he's become the Green Arrow, someone that we've known from the comics. Um, yeah, so I mean, I know going into the fourth season, there's just been a lot of mixed emotions, especially for me as a viewer. And the first three seasons were very morbid and grittier and somewhat depressing. And Starling City always gets overtaken by by these group of organizations, and we've seen the city just get destroyed like it was the apocalypse, like in the end of the first season. And then there was just a lot of depression, and I think the fourth season so far seems to be kind of lightening up, because they kind of announced that they were gonna try to tone down the darkness a bit. And I believe that was like one of the quotes that Oliver mentioned in a dialogue, how he wants to escape the darkness. So, kind of a subtle way of saying, of just trying to kind of symbolize the change that's going on in the fourth season. But it's still mostly the same arrow that we saw since the beginning of the series. Um, and in the third season, everything just felt like a soap opera, like Oliver and Felicity. Will they or won't they get together? And Felicity being a drama queen, and all that sort of drama that's going on, and that kind of got pretty tedious, especially with a lot of these emotional scenes. Um, and they killed off Sarah, who was the original Black Canary, which was unfortunate. I don't know if I was ready, to see her meet her death, um, but eventually she's gonna be resurrected later on. So we're gonna see that, according to that Legends of Tomorrow trailer, and coming out of the Lazarus pit. So yeah, that'll be a pretty interesting take. Um, I guess Laurel, she's kind of gone through a pretty big character development since the second season, going into the third season, and now she wants to fight crime like her sister, and ends up taking her role as the Black Canary. So that was pretty much the only redeeming thing about the third season. Um, and Oliver, quote unquote, dying, as a result of a you know Ra's al Ghul having their whole sword scene, and basically impaling Oliver, or so we thought. We all thought Oliver was dead, but obviously he was going to be, that he was going to somehow live. Um, yeah, that just kind of came off really. I think it's more of the payoff, but a couple episodes later, we saw him again, and he's back and fit and ready, and it kind of seemed a little rushed. That his death only lasted, I don't know, 2, 3 episodes, and like all of a sudden he's back. But yet Sarah took her like a whole season now. But I mean, but so far the fourth season episode looks pretty promising. I mean, a lot of TV shows, when they start to get to the point where they're just going to turning their backs against the premise that they were originally going for. A lot of the times they just never bounce back from the negative reaction from viewers, and but maybe they will. Maybe there is a second chance for this show, but we'll just have to wait and see. And Thea, she's kind of showcase a little bit of a aggressiveness in her fight scenes, so that's going to be going to play a big factor throughout the season. So um, she's kind of going through a similar phase that Roy had to go through, but except of being the Miracle being the excuse for Roy's aggressiveness. Thea's kind of coming from those after effects of the Lazarus Pit, because Thea and Ra's al Ghul had their little fight scene, and then Thea died, so then they had to resurrect her with the Lazarus Pit. So she's kind of going through the psychological effects of it. So, and that's going to be exposed. So yeah, Oliver's the first one to find out. So eventually, it's gonna kind of gonna reach its boiling point. Eventually, I think it's really no surprise in that matter. Um, yeah, so looking forward to the fourth season. I'm really worried, however, about one thing. About Oliver and Diggle's relationship and how they've kind of had a rocky road because Oliver tried to infiltrate Ra's al Ghul and try to plan out his own strategy and Diggle kind of feels pissed at Oliver because he nearly tried to murder his Diggle's wife and kidnapping her and their child and just and Diggle had no idea about this so-called strategy that Oliver had and it kind of for a while Oliver's friends kind of turned on him for a bit, or we all thought that Oliver betrayed them for that matter. But so it's gonna play a big part, especially now that the fourth season's kind of rolling around, and I'm afraid they might kill Diggle off. And this isn't the first time that there was a significant character, meeting their fortunate end. But because this is Oliver and his mother Mora had their little fallout in the second season, and then by the end, just as Mora was being elected as mayor, Slade ended up murdering Oliver's mother, and I don't know if that could be a possibility that Oliver and Dougal kind of going through somewhat of a phase like that, and you have to factor in that it seemed like each season there's always this big character that ends up dying. So Tommy in season one, I already discussed about Mora and Sarah. So I mean, especially since Oliver's team consists of primarily females, and other than Oliver himself, it's only the only other male member of that group of Team Arrow is Diggle, and based on their chemistry and even the actors' chemistry behind the scenes. So, I really like to think that Diggle sticks around throughout the fourth season because, yeah, I think he was definitely one of my favorite characters, I will say, and he was definitely underutilized in the third season. I thought he was going to kind of take a backseat because of all these new recruits and Team Arrow, but um, hopefully he sticks around. But you never know what's going to happen, so anything's possible. So yeah, but I'm still looking forward to the fourth season. So then we get to the fifth season premiere episodes of Once Upon a Time. They just ABC premiered the fifth season just about a week ago, and I know it's been only been two episodes so far as of the 10th of October when I'm uploading this video. Overall, it's still pretty decent looking so far. I mean, I know it's very early to tell to see how much the season will progress, whether it be a positive or a negative type of reaction. I mean, I know it's been kind of mixed emotions. Regina, who started off as the main villain of the series, is now, our sympathetic superhero or heroine, depending on how you look at it. So she's basically going to be the so-called savior of this season. So now that she has to, along with a couple of Emma's family, friends, and including Merlin, who is believed that he could help relinquish Emma of the dark powers, I guess you want to say. So, if you watch the season four finale, the darkness has spread across town. If Mr. Gold, was the former Dark One, and basically tries to get Regina, but Emma butts in the way. So now the darkness has consumed her, and she's starting to, her tone of voice starts to become a little more, I want to say more like monotone, more brooding, because she's kind of suffering from the after effects, the psychological effects that Mr. Gold or Rumpelstiltskin, depending on how you want to refer to him as, is has been gone through, with his fallout with Belle and losing Neil. and just a lot of emotions that have gone through since season four had come around. And Emma's also kind of going through a little phase because her magic powers are starting to come out of control, and and she starts to learn about her parents' secret, and this kind of infumes her. That kind of gets her so infuriated that her parents aren't what they seem to be. And you get to the fifth season, and there was actually a time skip about 6 weeks in between the end of the first episode of season five going into season two, and now everyone's memories are wiped except for Emma, who turns out that she actually wiped their memories at some point. So we'll have to see how this kind of culminates and how um, things turn out the way they did, and how Emma started to completely embrace the darkness. And you've seen a couple flashbacks, and and Emma using her dark magic to restore Regina's boyfriend Robin Hood after a sword fight. Um, yeah, so she's starting to get through a couple of uh, this is kind of like the planting seeds of how Emma becomes the Dark One, obviously. And I know I said like in the TV finale reactions of how I like the idea of Emma being evil, but at the same time, you could also argue that maybe despite the fact that Regina has constantly said time and time again that she's trying to redeem herself, and losing her mother, and some of the other emotions that she's also kind of going through. Now she's got the man that she loves, and she's lost a lot of close ones in her life, and she doesn't want to lose someone like Robin Hood. So she's always has love taken away from her, and not getting her happy ending, and and yet she's doing stuff that she shouldn't be doing, or stuff that just seems very questionable. So I think I can understand why some people are a little iffy on the idea of Regina being the savior. And I remember looking at some of those leaked photos prior to season five, and it's maybe if I'm looking this wrong, but it looks like Regina and Prince Charming are having some sort of an affair, from what I'm seeing. I think Regina and Prince Charming were, Regina trying to learn how to dance, and there's just something that about that scene that kind of makes me feel like something might have happened during that flashbacks that they probably don't even remember. So I think that might kind of negate the whole idea of Regina being the sympathetic anti-hero, trying to do the right thing and try to help her friends and help Emma get out of the darkness. And and also you got to factor in Merlin, because even though he has a big key, he's the key behind how to relinquish the dark magic from Emma. Um, so obviously Merlin and Guinevere aren't who they seem to be, and maybe that might play a key factor as to why Emma also became the Dark One. Maybe a combination of those factors, and um, Regina, pretending to be the savior, despite the fact that Emma was technically the savior. But and this was like before, like I said, before she really truly embraced the dark magic, and so there was a little bit of good of her, especially after she got consumed in the darkness the first time around. But even though her tone of voice, and basically kind of going through the psychological after effects of the dark the dark magic that Mr. Gold once had, and the darkness that was consuming his heart, which played a key part in the fourth season. Um, and then I think that they were supposed to have like Lily as the savior, who was like Emma's childhood friend that that their friendship ended on bad terms. So there was talks about Lily being the savior, but it seems like they might not go in that route because they weren't able to get the actress to reprise her role for the fifth season. So um, yeah, it's definitely, they didn't really plan ahead of time. So I would have liked to have seen maybe the idea of her trying to kind of get Emma to come to her senses, that Lily admits that she made a mistake by lying to her, and the fact that she claimed to be an orphan, but it turns out she had parents, unlike Emma, who didn't even knew her parents back in the day. Um, so that might, I really think that could have played a pretty key component factor, and to kind of give them that long term payoff to their uh, Emma's backstory and her history and the people that she met that have come and gone within her life. So I thought that would have been a cool idea. Although I did kind of see the idea of Regina being the savior from a mile away, so I'm not sure if that was pretty much the clear idea, but I would have liked to see maybe Lily come back and maybe try to pay off that storyline, but unfortunately we might not get that. Um, Yeah, so it's just very basically poor prioritizing at the moment. So poor planning, if you will. That's what I was trying to say. Um, what else I was gonna say? So it's kind of interesting, because like Hugh Glory was a villain in Tomorrowland, and now Jennifer Morrison's also a villain. So you have like two former House actors, playing the bad person, playing the big bad of their respective counterparts. Hugh Glory in Tomorrowland, Jennifer Morrison Once Upon a Time. Um, yeah, they should definitely do a collaboration, and maybe that's just me, but um, yeah. So basically, the idea of Regina being the hero and Emma being the main villain, basically a mirrored version of season one, except with the roles reversed. So yeah, so this, like I said, this could be a two-way street. This could be really, really good, or this could be a real big disappointment. And this, I don't really know, but hopefully we'll see throughout season five. It's hard to tell at the moment, but there's just, I'm kind of glad they're bringing in Megan Ori back. She was the Red Riding Hood. She was Ruby, the waiter from the first two seasons. So glad to see her glad to see her that she's going to be coming back. Same goes for Doctor Whale. Um, a couple other characters I didn't get to mention. Um, I know they're going to try and get Will to come back for season five, but obviously that didn't happen. Um, yeah, so hopefully, season five is a step up from the last one or two seasons. I'm still kind of iffy against, with the split story arcs that they've had since season three. So I'm not like too much of an advocate behind the split seasons. Um, what other stuff I want to also talk about? I think that's really about it. Nothing's really springing to mind at the moment. So yeah, so that's just my thoughts on the fifth season premiere episode of Once Upon a Time. So yeah, so leave your comments on some of those. What's your thoughts on the direction that the show's been going so far? So you know, there you have it at that. Now, but before we get to the end of this podcast, there's also one other TV show I was going to mention in this video, and also going to discuss about Power Rangers Dino Charge. So it just came back from its summer hiatus, and so far, I'm definitely really enjoying what we're seeing so far. They brought in Ivan, who is this medieval knight who, like Coda, came around many, many years ago before the beginning of the series. And both of them are really trying to adjust themselves to modern society. For many generations, Ivan got stuck with Fury, and finally, he gets out of Fury's body. Um, at first they kind of teased the fact that that this could be Tyler's father inside Fury's body, considering the fact that his father had disappeared during an exhibit where he and Fury confronted one another, or at least what it was believed to at the beginning of the Dino Charge. So eventually, it turns out to be Ivan instead, and basically he and Tyler are trying to kind of situate themselves, and when they first meet up, they just seem to be kind of one on one with each other, like some sort of rivalry going on in that episode of Sink or Swim. But everything pans out all right, and Tyler eventually accepts Ivan as a member of the team. So I definitely like what we're seeing of Ivan. Yeah, he's kind of a little peculiar in some places, and kind of like Coda. They're kind of comic reliefs to an extent. But at the same time, you could really try and feel their characters, especially the fact since they came in from a different time period. So especially trying to get adjusting to modern society, and basically Ivan's just trying to. He's really kind of going through that old school vibe, because back in the day you had to like there was like this scene where Ivan brings in this horse, and the citizens of that town that Power Rangers Dino Charge is set in are up in arms on Ivan, and basically it's like me as a viewer, I'm just trying to ask myself, is how in the world was he able to own that horse? Especially you might think that back in the day there was like this system called bartering where you had to exchange goods between two people, or and then modern society you have to use money or cash credit cards in order to purchase your goods. And it seems like Ivan's trying to, is just kind of going the old school type of fashion, even though he's basically out of touch with the times. So I definitely would like to see a chemistry between Ivan and Coda. I think we might get it later on, maybe next season if it's not, a couple episodes from now. So maybe we have to wait next season for Super Dino Charge. Um, yeah, so definitely, I think those two could gel well. Maybe have a episode devoted to those two. Now, granted, Dino Charge is not perfect. I still think it has some flaws. Most notably the overemphasis on the humor side of things, and you know. I know Sean Fowler, who you may know him as Orange Ranger, who does the an episode by episode analysis on a lot of the recent Power Rangers seasons, and I do think he does have some valid points on some of the the over reliance of humor that's been presented throughout most of Dino Charge. I do agree with some of his points, but at the same time, it doesn't bother me too much. But I think it has more to do with the nature in terms of the characters and the cast members that portray some of those characters in the show, and how they manage to kind of flow well together and really get just really gel together as a unit. I really feel that it doesn't necessarily irritate me in a way, because the thing with Power Rangers is that obviously it's catered towards a younger demographic, and you would expect a lot of gross humor being utilized, especially with some of the fart jokes that was presented throughout Dino Charge, and um, so I do think he does make a good point of it. Like I said, I don't necessarily have too much of a problem, but I'm just saying that maybe while there's some Power Ranger seasons that have had their flaws and had their ups and downs overall, I do think they can take it a little too much at times. Maybe I'm just contradicting myself because I'm saying, oh well, I'm complaining about the comic, about the humor in the show, but at the same time I'm defending it. So I guess it's safe to say I'm just making it a double standard, if you will. So Dino Charge looks to be pretty promising. I do think the keeper of the show, who's kind of like your Zordon, or just basically kind of like your, the grandfather of the group, of the Power Rangers of this season. So So he does have knowledge and insight behind the Dino Gems, and he'll always show up, trying to provide the Rangers with some words of wisdom or some moral advice, so to speak. And other than that, he doesn't really do as much. So he's kind of sort of in the background, kind of like Gosei was in Megaforce. But I think something might be. I think something's gonna happen with the keeper down the road. I mean, he's just kind of there in the background, and um, but I will at least give him credit for at least trying to help the Rangers by providing them some good advice, some very clear explanations that Gosei wasn't able to do. Like he would try it, he wouldn't really explain things, and if he did, he would always just come up with some one-liner or something, or he gets cut off by mid-sentence, or he just has an explanation that's very shallow and vague in that sort of sense. Um, but I think Keeper is a slightly tolerable than Gosei if I had to choose of the two mentors did which of the two mentors were better. But but it is what it is. I think there might be some tricks up his sleeve in terms of the keeper's motivations, but I mean, I don't expect him to have like some sort of focus episode because I've been looking up at all these episode synopsis regarding what's gonna happen throughout the first half of Dino Charge, and they actually aired the rest of Dino Charge overseas, so they definitely aired their episodes months ahead of us. So they actually aired all the 20 episodes of the first half of Dino Charge. So um, yeah, so I think that's been kind of a thing with Nickelodeon and Power Rangers in terms of their partnership because I don't know, they like, always had to take breaks in between the middle of the season, like many of their shows, especially with Power Rangers. I mean, when they got Samurai, they had to like take a long summer or spring hiatus. Like they would show episodes throughout February, March, and April, and then they just cut to an early summer hiatus throughout May, June, July, and probably August. Although recently with Dino Charge, they actually premiered it in August rather than September. But but that was always a problem that I had with Nickelodeon's airing of Power Rangers over the years, and you wonder why the ratings just started to dip. Despite the fact that when Samurai, when it was the first Power Rangers series to air on Nickelodeon, started off with higher ratings, and everything just came crashing down by the end of 2011. And I think that's kind of one of the detriments behind Power Rangers airing on a kids channel like Nickelodeon. Especially with the current state of that channel and the fact that they can't really make new shows that isn't acquiring a third party acquisition like Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and all these franchises, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh. I mean, they can't seem to make their own set of cartoons or live action shows. Unless if you were SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents or a show that was produced by Dan Schneider, other than if you're not any of one of those three factors, I mean, your show isn't going to get tossed out the window. And so I mean, Nickelodeon's definitely kind of been on a rocky road for many years now. But getting back to Power Rangers, so Dino Charge, I'm definitely liking what I'm seeing so far. Um, I really would like to see a focus episode on Kendall, who's kind of like the technical advisor of the team. So maybe we could maybe dive a little more into her character. I mean, other than assisting the Rangers with these new gadgets and weapons and Megazords and all that sort of technology, it's like we never really so far have learned very much about Kendall outside of her technical aspects. And I believe it's been speculated that she may be the violet or the purple Dino Charge Power Ranger, which I'm definitely uh, very optimistic in seeing if that does happen, and maybe provide a little bit more of about like her passion for science, and why is she so caught up with all this, and what happened to her parents, or like why is she acting the way she is towards the Rangers sometimes. Like sometimes she gives them a bit of a cold shoulder at times, but I would definitely like to learn more about Kendall's character, and maybe she's kind of going through a Dr. K phase where she's mostly doing science work, or she's, I mean, granted, she at least she helps the Rangers out, especially when they go undercover and try to retrieve some of the Dino gems or any particular object that they have to retrieve before the main villains get their hands on it. So I will at least give credit where credit's due as far as Kendall's concerned. Definitely a useful asset to the team and not a liability. Um, yeah, so I mean, when I first heard the Kendall, based on the character's name, Kendall Morgan, I always kind of scratched my head as whether or not she was inspired by Kendrix from Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. And I think like in the first episode or two, like Kendall made mentions about how she wanted to be a Power Ranger, and she was so disappointed when it turned out that the pink Dino Gem was given to Shelby. So she was actually pretty disappointed, and maybe she'll get her comeuppance eventually, and become a Power Ranger of her own. So it kind of best of both worlds to kind of summarize it at that. So I think there might be a win-win situation between her and Shelby. Um, Now their rivalries kind of subsided in recent episodes, so it's not like a big key important a key important rivalry that's been going on, but it hasn't been like that. Um, but I definitely would look forward to seeing maybe a Kendall focus episode down the road. Um, so hopefully, she becomes a Power Ranger eventually herself, and they actually, I think when Chip Lynn, who also did like some of the serialized Power Ranger seasons like Space and Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed, and Time Force, when he was given the question that whether or not Kendrix and Kendall were related in some way, Chip actually denied those speculations, and which was, I mean, I don't think he actually had any idea. I believe he made mention of something like that, um, but yeah, I thought it would be cool if Kendall was actually related to Kendricks, given their passion for science and assisting their respective ranger crews with information regarding like a certain weapon or a megazord that they have to retrieve, or some of their background history. Um, they do have, those two characters had something in common. And I would think not just because of their characters' names being the same, like, both their last names being Morgan, but just in terms of their characteristics, and what makes them stand out from one another. Um, yeah, so I think that's really my thoughts on the Kendall character. I know I've been spending a couple minutes talking about her, um, but I definitely think that'll be one of the highest points of the season, in my opinion, is if they have her as a Power Ranger, and having the team with with the rest of with Tyler, Shelby, Coda. Uh, Dang, I forgot the black. Oh yeah, Black Ranger's name is Chase, and Ivan, along with Kendall, like I said. So, um, yeah, definitely looking forward to the possibilities of, just what the, how it would turn out by the end of the season. What's the final Ranger team going to look like? And is Keeper going to be around for very long? Considering the fact we haven't seen him a whole lot, so he may have a trick up his sleeve. So definitely looking forward to see what happens with Dino Charge. And I believe that's pretty much about it for this podcast. So let me know what you think about this. I'll probably might do this maybe next week or the week after. I'm not really so sure because I have to split the audio files into multiple parts. So I had to shoot one audio file on one day and the other audio files on the other days, especially try to, just to try to, when I'm doing these TV reviews, I want to try to keep a fresh memory so I don't miss a lot of information. And just basically trying to kind of see what I could do and try to experiment with this idea of doing these weekly TV reviews of some of these primetime shows or a particular. It doesn't have to be primetime shows, but pretty much any TV show that you could think of in general that I pretty much watch on a weekly basis. But like I said, leave out some of your feedback, and until next time, this is Gold Standards User 924 signing out.